Welcome to Invisible No More, the podcast where we explore triumphs over trauma and the powerful journeys of healing and resilience. I'm your host, Shannon Hough, and together we'll shine a light on the stories of strength, hope, and the paths we forge to reclaim our lives. Let's dive in.
Hello, thank you for joining us again at Invisible No More. This is episode 13 with Shield of Sisters. My name is Shannon Hough, and I'm here with Jane today. Jane just came back from a retreat as well, and we are excited to get to spend some time with you and talk about your military service all the way up through the retreat and kind of tell people what you experienced and pretty much anything we just start talking about. It's kind of like just having a conversation, and that's what I love about our podcasts. They're just conversations. So tell me a little bit about yourself when you joined the Army, right? Your Army?
Yes, I joined in 1985.
Okay.
I did boot camp in the same place that Wendy did. We did boot camp at Fort Dix, and then I went to Fort Leonard Wood from there.
Okay, Fort Leonard Wood. I know it well. My husband was stationed there. So it's they just had a story come out of there.
85 till 97.
You were at Fort Leonard Wood the whole time?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did all my training there.
Okay.
I was in Germany, Panama, all those areas, and then I went out to Southeast Asia for Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Okay. Wow. You went a lot of places.
Yeah.
Must be
A
nice.
lot of other countries.
When I joined, the slogan was "Join the Navy, see the world," and I saw Virginia. So, yeah, not very much of a difference from Kentucky. So,
No.
we have that
Well,
little.
going over to desert places like Panama and all them is pretty different compared to what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from Wisconsin to a desert, definitely a huge change.
Yep.
So,
Oh, yeah. And I was, what was I, 20, 24?
okay.
So I was young.
Yeah. Wow. So you waited a little bit before you went in.
Yes.
Okay. I was 2 weeks from high school graduation, turning 18, and going to boot camp, all within 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about why you joined the military. Were you the first woman in your family to join? Things like that.
No. My brother was the first one that joined, and then my sister was in the Marines, and she served 4 years in the Marines, and then some things happened to her in service, so she left the Marines and moved to Arizona, and she was killed in a motor vehicle accident in Arizona.
I'm so sorry.
She left me as her executor of her estate, so I ended up meeting the man that was with her when she passed away, because she hit a bridge embankment,
Okay.
and the vehicle she was driving flipped over, and she went through the windshield, and the vehicle landed on top of her, and it crushed her. But she kept calling out my name, according to the gentleman. But yeah, going and taking care of her estate made me realize that I need to be more of an advocate for patient rights and stuff. So I went into nursing, and I had hoped to do that when I was overseas too, but they weren't looking for nurses when I joined. They were looking for truck drivers and admin people, and I just wasn't interested in sitting behind a desk. So I did the truck driving,
Okay.
which it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it, but when you're in another country, it's a lot harder.
I'm sure.
And
yeah.
there's no road signs, there's no stop and go lights, So when over in Desert Storm, that we would do our convoys, and they'd be like, well, turn at the MRE box or turn at the stick in the road. And it's like, what road? You're driving on desert.
I'm sure that
I'm
was a
like,
challenge.
seriously?
Even with
A
GPS,
lot of
I'm
our missions were
navigationally
like that. It was
challenged.
so weird.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
That would be a problem for me. I'm navigationally challenged even with GPS. So if they told
Sure.
me to stick in the road, I'd be like, well, there's a few.
Right. Well, my brother really talked me into joining. I needed to do something with my life. I needed to get away from my dad because I wasn't living with my dad. I got taken out of my dad's home when I was 16 and put into a house that had lots of rooms where you rent the room
Okay.
and you still go to school because my dad was abusing me so bad physically. So when I turned 21, my brother decided to, teach me some things. And I started doing a boot camp with my brother to learn things that I needed to learn for going into the military. And then I went into the Army recruiter with my brother, and he knew my brother, so it was an easy recruitment because they talked a lot more than they talked to me.
Oh,
But
wow.
of course, but that's kind of why I went in, because I followed my brother. I was more of a tomboy growing up, so I wanted to kind of keep up with him. So,
Yeah. So you already had trauma before you even joined the military.
oh yes, yes. My brother sexually assaulted me and my sister multiple times growing up under the direction of my biological mother. She would have my brother play doctor on us and have him do exams on us, like vaginal exams. So it started with him. All the sexual trauma started with him. So I'm not sure. I must have just blocked a lot of that out, when I wanted to grow up like him and be around him all the time. But growing up, all I knew was my brother and my older sister. My other sister and I, we were under their command basically because our mother was abusive. I mean, we got slapped around a lot. My dad took a suitcase and broke it over my head. My dad was a severe alcoholic. So not only were we being sexually abused, we were being physically abused. And my dad and my real mom divorced when I was in first grade, so I was 6 or 7. And I don't know how my dad managed to get custody of all 4 of us. I just don't. Because I had aunts, relatives that wanted to take us, and somehow the judge gave my dad custody. And I to this day will never understand that, but my dad's gone, so I don't know. I still have a lot of that trauma in me, but I can talk about it a lot more now because I've confronted my brother multiple times before he committed suicide about it. And my sister did as well, because my older sister and me were both sexually assaulted. And then my sister that went in the Marines was sexually assaulted in the Marines. So, but yeah, and my brother, when my dad had custody of us, my brother had a lot of parties when my dad was working, because my dad worked second shift. So my brother would party at night, have all his buddies over, and then I started charging people money to go into the bathroom, see if I could make a little money, And I was going to bed one night, and one of my brother's friends came in there and laid down on my bed and just said he was going to rub my back and blah, blah. And one thing led to another, and he was on top of me with a pillow over my mouth, so I couldn't say anything. And I was trying to scream, and he assaulted me. He raped me, and I started bleeding really bad. So he did some vaginal damage, and I ended up having to go to the hospital. And my brother took me, and my brother found out then that it was one of the guys that was at his party. And I had to, yeah, I had to stay in the hospital for a couple of nights because they say it's popping the cherry or whatever the hell they want to call it, but no, he did some damage because the lining was tore inside.
They say that a lot of us join the military have childhood trauma, and for some reason we're drawn to the military for whatever reason. I don't know all the history behind that. Unfortunately, your trauma didn't stop there, right? I mean, you joined the military, you had trauma and issues in the military. And we could talk about that if you want. But one of the things I want to bring up is you're one of the most resilient people I've met in this process of creating Shield of Sisters. You had childhood trauma. You've lost siblings. You still served, and you're still here wanting and willing to talk about what happened to you to help others and help continue your journey of healing. And I just want to commend you for that, because I know it's not easy. As a survivor of physical abuse growing up, I know how hard it can be to even just deal with that part. And then you join the military and you go through all this betrayal and abuse again. So first I wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress. I mean, I've been being counseled now since 2013, and I have had multiple counselors because for one reason or the other they've left the VA, but I mean, and I have a male counselor right now, and he's fine. I mean, I do okay with him. It's just sometimes I don't find myself able to talk as openly as I really want to talk openly about, because I'm not comfortable doing that with a male.
Right.
So, yeah. But you're right. The trauma continued. I mean, I dated guys that were alcoholics and abusive, so I continued to have abusive relationships. And then I got married, and that guy cheated on me left and right, and I left him. And the second guy I married became very abusive and not understanding why sex was so hard for me, and just started drinking more and thinking that having sex when he's drunk was okay, and it was very forced. And I'm like, I'm not okay with that, but I just lay there and let him do what he was going to do because I didn't know anything else to do. Yeah. And I guess what did me in with him is when he decided to throw me up against a wall, and my kids got to see this, and that wasn't healthy for them at all, nor was it healthy for me. So, but, and overseas, when I was overseas in the military, I was doing guard duty with, they had the females out with a male doing guard duty because they didn't want two females out there because men will take advantage of that. Well, one of the males that was out there was somebody I didn't really know very well, and he made comments and told me that I'm not the only one that this is going to happen to, and he threw me down on the ground and proceeded to put his hand over my mouth and undo my pants with his other hand, and he basically had sex, basically raped me, and then he got up and wiped the sand off of him, and he said, "This is just the first time." He said, "There'll be more," and I'm like, "No, there won't." And he's like, "If you report this," he said, "you're going to look like a slut and a whore," and he just kept calling me all kinds of things and telling me that if I reported, it's going to be my word over his. And come to find out, he did this to two other women. So there were three of us. Now, mind you, when I was overseas, the unit I went overseas with was not the unit we stayed with when we were over there. they cut my unit in pieces. So they took so many of us to one group. You know, they divided us like we were in 6 different areas of Southeast Asia. So they moved us all around, and I didn't know these people that I was with. You know, it would have been a different story if I was still with my own unit because I knew the guys in my group, but these were men that I didn't know. And the other 2 women were in the same predicament. And when we got back, when I got back to my unit, I reported it to my commander, and my commander told me that when we go home, they do a deployment and at Fort McCoy. So we got deployed there, or undeployed, and they took you aside and asked you questions if you were sexually assaulted and stuff like that. And I just broke down in tears, and I just cried, and I literally was screaming because I was so upset because I had to live with that the whole rest of the time I was over there, knowing that this guy was going to haunt me until we got out of there or got put back in our group.
So you reported when you got back?
Yes, it got reported when I got back. It went to court, and I got to go on. I could not face this man.
Yeah.
Because there were multiple women. There was the 3 of us, 3 of the girls that I was with, and then there were more women out in the area to talk. So he had multiple charges.
Well,
because this was something he lived off of this. He got his kicks off of this because he knew he could do whatever he wanted and get away with it, or think he got away with it. But
well, I'm so
being
glad
that
that
the
when
3
you
of us women stepped forward. What?
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. I'm so glad that when you got back, you all were able to report that, and that the military actually did their job and prosecuted
Yeah,
them.
but it took like 2.5 years, and for the whole thing to be over and done with.
Wow.
And then he ended up serving his time, but that's neither here nor there. It doesn't take away all the trauma. Yeah, my trauma
Right.
started when I was young, but
Yeah.
it proceeded to keep following me.
And you know,
The only thing that's good that's come out of all this is that I'm married to a gentleman who has never touched me. He doesn't verbally abuse me, none of that. And it's like we're polar opposites, but we mesh,
right.
if that makes any sense.
It does, and I'm so glad you found a man that is a man and isn't a horrific human. You know, you brought up a good point. Just because the military prosecuted him, just because he went to jail, served his time, doesn't mean that the victim, which I hate the word victim, but survivor, you're here, isn't impacted the rest of our lives. You know, we have a lifetime sentence after a trauma like what you have had or like what I have had. It's always going to be there. The difference is what you do with it, right? How you decide to let it rule your life, if you're going to carry it around with you, you know, kind of like we talk about at the retreats, you know, carrying the weight of your trauma, or living your life knowing it's there, but not letting it control your life. So I'm glad to hear that the military did something right in that situation, short of a bullet in his head. But we can probably edit that out. That was just my feeling there for a second. I had a rough day yesterday, Jane. You know, I was reading an article, and this sergeant has 27 counts of assault, burglary, kidnapping, rape, attempted murder. I mean, the rap sheet is ridiculous, and it's like over a 4 or 5 years time frame. And I immediately started thinking back to the retreat and some of the things we talked about, and other women I've listened to, and the anger I felt yesterday was so significant, I gave myself a migraine. And I almost considered postponing the podcast
sorry.
because, no. Almost considered, delaying the podcast, calling in sick, whatever, something I would have done before I started really healing. One of my things is to kind of brush everything off and hide. But then we only let them win, right? If we quit living, if we don't live our lives and do things like this to help other women. So,
Right.
It amazes me what continues to go on to this day in our ranks. But what I refuse to do is to refuse to hide in my house and not use our voices. We have a podcast platform. We have our retreats. We have our conference. I talk to people. I called a senator yesterday and told him, I said, this is ridiculous. No one in the mainstream media is hearing about our stories. We hear them obscurely through a military magazine. What is going on? And he was just as shocked. I think the more we talk about it and the more people hear our stories like yours and like Angela's, who is on episode 11 and 12, and the more they understand just how bad it is, somebody's going to have to sit up and start listening to us.
Right.
And as painful as it is to talk about it, if it saves one person, then we've done our job, right?
Right.
So if you had any advice for anyone listening that has been assaulted in the military and is experiencing PTSD and trauma and, all of the emotions that go with it, what would you tell them to do right now?
Don't be afraid to get help. Reach out. And if you can't reach out to your VA, reach out to people in your circle, in your group of friends, because somebody in that group will get you in touch with the right people. Because that's how I was able to get in touch with the VA. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's how I was able to get with the VA. I didn't know that I could reach out to the VA. I didn't know that they would help me in any way, shape, or form. And it took me talking about it and my dad helping me, which was really strange, because I had to go to counseling right when I got home. Mm-hmm. But then after the first attempt of trying to commit suicide, my dad didn't want to help anymore because he didn't want me throwing my life away, and he thought that was what I was doing. So, but I can just encourage people to just don't give up. Know that there are so many of us out there, and just reach out. Go to women veteran retreats. Go to things where you can talk to other women that have been like in the same situation as you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
I am thankful for the women I have met through the retreats that I have gone to. I have opened up more in the last 6 months than I have in a long time. And having Wendy, knowing Wendy and Angela and all of them, and having you in my life right now has been a great reward. I never knew this existed. I never knew there was someone like you working on helping women like us until I heard about Shield of Sisters when I was at a retreat that Wendy and I were at. Mm-hmm. So I never knew this existed. So I am thankful that Jody got me interested in doing this.
Well, I'm glad she allowed us to share at the Women Veterans Retreat here in Wisconsin about Shield of Sisters, because I know it's definitely helped a few women and, a few of our sisters. I know we've talked a lot. We're getting ready to wrap this up. Joe has given me a sign here. I want to thank you for sharing your story. I know your story is so hard. But again, like I said, you're just so resilient. You're still here, through suicide attempts, through abuse, through so many things. You've brought other women into the network of sisterhood that we're creating. You've just telling your story and sharing that there is hope out there is huge. So I thank you for that.
And I thank you.
Oh, thank
you for doing what you do.
It's absolutely my life work and my pleasure. So I'm going to outro us here on this. And thank you again for joining me. So
Yes.
thank you all for joining this episode with Jane. I know there were some parts that were very difficult to maybe hear for some of you, maybe some triggers. Anytime you are feeling like you've been triggered, like you're in a place where you don't want to be here tomorrow, reach out and talk to someone. Call 988, press 1. Call me, text me, whatever. We're here to talk to you. Jane, thank you again. You're just such a blessing, and I appreciate you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for those in our Founders Circle: Walmart, Superbio, Sauk County Veteran Service Office, and USAA for your continued support. If you're interested in joining our Founders Circle, reach out to me at shannon@shieldofsisters.com or 608-344-0210. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on our newest episodes of Invisible No More podcast.